Welcome to another live stream, Legends. Well, guys, although I'm bearish, as per the norm, I've blindsided you all by taking a couple of long positions. Actually, not really blindsided at all. I shared it well in advance in both the MDX ALGO Discord here, as well as in my private Telegram. We've already hit a few of my targets, so let's start the stream on the lower time frames for a change here. Hopefully I don't lose power here, Legends. We have a severe thunderstorm rolling in, so if I disconnect, it is not intentional, but we'll see what happens here. But with that, let's hop right into Bitcoin on the 5-minute chart here. This is the setup that I laid out in the Discord here, you guys, is that basically I think we were trading actually approximately right here, or maybe even up here, wherever we were up there. I was saying that basically now that we've broken some structure levels, then I am starting to look for that pullback for some sort of a hedge position just from this micro trend breaking, right? So, and that's basically what happened. We tested the 786, very quickly hit the 0.5 target, and now we've actually played the whole range. We've hit my 214 target even a little bit further. So from there, this is one of those times where although it was more of a hedge, I'm also looking at it as, you know, a quick way to make some profits. Look at this as a long setup. I was able to take a little bit of profits off this position, and now it's still running risk-free as a hedge against my shorts that I'm still in from significantly higher, right? So right now I am positioned for either direction unless we come back down and stop this one out. The rest of this position, then the short is going to be taking control again, and I am fine with that too, because honestly, the reason I haven't closed the rest of my short positions is because I think the bigger move is still going to be to the downside. But again, guys, I just trade the charts for what they are. You know, I'm on the 5-minute here. I saw a bullish setup. I was willing to take it, and it played out beautifully, right? No surprises here. We just grabbed the stew fib here, and we hit the first two take profits. From here, we just see what happens. If it turns into a home run trade and we just moon from here, great. I'm positioned for it. If we dump from here, whatever, I made some profits on this trade either way. And from there, then you know what, the short can take over. So position that way as well. So we're just going to have to see what happens from here. As far as looking for new setups, I mean, I personally think we are going to pump a little bit higher, but I do think it's going to be short-lived. I would not be surprised to see us reclaim most of this move, honestly. We'll have to see, but as it stands right now, it even looks like we have a little bit of a pennant sort of formation forming here. I know not everybody likes trend lines, and honestly, I need very specific ones, so that's my exact touch points at this time. If we can get a third touch point followed by a breakout and flipping that resistance to support, that would be fantastic. But you know, whether or not that happens, so far it's just kind of trend lines that I'd be eyeing up, but that just looks like how it's forming. And being we had such an aggressive dump to the downside right here, you know, if we start breaking these resistance levels, then I see no reason why we wouldn't reclaim most of that. And if we do end up pumping to the upside here, that's where I'd be looking at pulling another fib, right? I really don't think we would get much higher than the 786. Of course, it's possible we go all the way up. And honestly, even if we zoom out, this is where it gets a little bit tricky, you guys, is even if that fib gets invalidated, there's still so much resistance above us, because this is where we topped out, right? That 111, 112, whatever you want to call it. If we pull that, we still obviously have this resistance ahead, which is obviously where I was from that short a few days back. Is from that exact fib pull, because we lost that uptrend, we broke some structure to the downside. That's where I was starting to look for those short positions once again. So yeah, now, like I said, Bitcoin just has so much work to do. Even if it ends up climbing to the upside, it's just, for me, I have zero FOMO. I know a lot of people are really worried about missing the move to the upside. Honestly, I'm positioned so that, and not just with leverage, but with spot as well, if we end up flying to the upside, I'm going to be very happy, just like the Moon Boys, because I'm ready for that. I'm ready to be wrong with my bearish theories. I would love nothing more than to see this market go parabolic. It's just that on the longer time frames, I just have so many concerns, and every day I feel like those concerns are just getting stronger and more valid. But like I said, even though I've been a perma bear for realistically the entire year, Since basically Christmas, I have been very vocally bearish, and that has not changed because we have not set a new high since that. Until that gets invalidated, I am just playing the reversal that we've been given, and I would love to see that reverse again. I just don't know if it's realistic, and we're getting pretty late into the cycle. Maybe we get one more nice push. I just have my concerns about that. But again, guys, I'm more of a scalper or lower time frame trader anyways, so I'm looking more so for these setups, the 5 minutes, the scalps, the easy profits, and from there, if it turns into a home run trade, fantastic. But if not, whatever. You know, we can be wrong on this. Even at this point, we could absolutely nuke from here. Doesn't matter. Still made profit off the position. And that's where even if you're wrong, or it basically goes to how you're executing the position, what really matters at the end of the day, right? You can have every theory. You can absolutely, you know, I know some people, some of my friends who are very, very good analysts, and they will predict what happens, but then, you know, they don't necessarily trade it well. Whereas I also have friends who are very good traders who will openly admit, I don't know where it's going to go, but if this setup happens, here's a trade I'm taking. If this setup happens, here's a trade I'm taking. So they don't know what's going to happen, but they're ready for certain scenarios. And in my opinion, that's more important in the game of trading, is more so being able to react rather than predict. Obviously, there's a certain level of throwing those things together. But at the end of the day, just being able to react to the price action and being able to change your bias is very important. Oh boy, I don't know if you guys heard that, but the whole house shook on that one. Anyways, so that's basically Bitcoin. Looking at the 5 minute, yeah, you know what, we run to the upside. I would love to see that for that long that I ended up taking earlier. Hype as well, you guys, ended up in a long position. So this one, my position was a little bit higher. It was closer to the 886 and ended up hitting the first target, but I never did cancel the rest of my orders down here, so I ended up hitting a couple of lower entries down here and brought my average price down a little bit. And I once again took some profits at this level. I have some more profits set for just front running this 214 fib a little bit, and from there we see what happens with the remaining half of that position as well, right? Because again, no matter what happens at this point, I've been taking profits on this position as a scalp because it's the 5 minute. Remember, play the time frame you're actually playing. And if you're pulling a Fibonacci, like if you're like me and you're trading some sort of a Fibonacci strategy, for example, you know, if you pull a fib, this is the range. And you always hear people say, play the range first. This is your range. So if you pull a really small fib looking for an entry, but then you don't want to take profits at your profit levels, and then you get stopped out, that doesn't necessarily mean the strategy was wrong. It just means that you're executing it poorly, right? You're not sticking to your plan. So that's what I love about Fibonacci's, is you have your levels all there. There's very little room for emotions as long as you can just, you know, kind of set your trades and forget about it, right? So that's what I love about them, because they're so systematic. Because even obviously any trade strategy, you guys, there's no trade strategy that's going to be 100%. And trading isn't all about your winning percent, but also just controlling your losses when they come, right? Because as traders, we all take losses. It's about controlling those losses so you don't get discouraged, so you don't wreck your account, because it's always so much harder to come back from losses. Whereas, you know, if you make some wins, it's very easy to lose those wins, right? I mean, if your account gets cut in half, you now need to, you know, you lost 50%, you now need to make 100% to make that back, right? So it's obviously hard. So preserving your capital and just, you know, being safe in the markets and being ready for anything, having proper invalidation levels and all that sort of stuff, that is way more important than being able to predict exactly where the market's going to go in the mid to long term, right? That being said, speaking of the mid to long term, let's take a look at Bitcoin on the 4 hour here. I just had a laugh when I was scrolling through some of my tweets and I saw these. January 17th, I was warning that, you know, we were about to get wrecked. What do you know? We end up getting that swing fail, right? We end up retesting those highs. I was looking at it as a Stuber fib. I mentioned this in my yesterday's public stream. I was actually looking at this setup as a Stuber fib, but that never did get invalidated either. So Stuber fib or a swing fail, either way, basically mentioning we're ready to get wrecked here. And just like on May 23rd, I was looking at the same thing, right? Because what happened that day is we had another swing fail, right? We ended up breaking that resistance, and then we're going back down, retesting that support. Well, not support, just retesting that resistance as resistance even a couple times and getting rejected. I don't know if we're going to get that type of move again, to be fair. It was just my way of warning that, you know, there's so many people saying how bullish we are, convincing people to FOMO long because, hey, we broke out of all-time highs, it's straight to the moon time. That's not necessarily how structure likes to work, right? The price of Bitcoin ranges significantly more than it's breaking out. And I know most people like to trade breakouts, and it's, in my opinion, the riskiest type of trading you can do if you don't have a very specific strategy that you use. If you're just looking for resistance to break, I mean, when structure breaks, it almost always gets damn near a full retracement, right? Today's a perfect example, guys. Just talking about my 5-minute chart. I don't treat the 4-hour or the weekly or the daily or the 1 minute or the, you know, I don't treat anything any differently. This is a perfect example. I played 2 of them today on a smaller time frame. Is, hey, we broke some structure. We get a full retrace damn near. The 786, you know, very close to a full retrace. Same with hype. You know, we broke out. We actually ended up getting a full retrace and then a little further. That being said, since we set a lower low there, that's where I actually have more concerns about hype right now. Because since we set a lower low there, I'm tempted to pull a fib like this. We could end up finding resistance because we set a lower low from here. Holy shit. Yeah, it's like hailing against my window and the whole house is shaking every couple minutes. Sorry to get distracted, big storm here. But yeah, since we set a lower low, that's where I'd be interested in pulling a fib from there. Although actually, even just as I said that, I changed my tune about that because there was already a downtrend that broke, right? Even though it's micro analyzing, we had this low, we had a lower low, and an even lower low. So this was actually our lower high, and breaking that since getting into my position. I mean, that's just bonus points for my current position. Holy hell! Can you guys hear the hail smashing off my window? I'm kind of nervous right now. But anyways. So that's kind of my outlook right now. Hype not looking so bad as long as it doesn't lose these lows again, basically. Yeah, that does look like my front yard right now. Holy hell. Those are some big hailstones. All right. If you don't hear anything, that is good because it is getting loud and it's getting hard for me to hear myself. Still nothing?
Yeah, I could hear a little bit in the background, but I'm just on the headphones, so maybe that's why.
Okay. Hopefully it's not too bad. It's obviously very much so distracting me. But yeah, like I said, I was a little bit nervous about hype here because of that lower low. But like I said, since we set another very small lower low here, you know, I think that structure could have been invalidated already. So, I mean, either way, I have, like I said earlier, another TP set just front running this level. I think it's about 37,188, I think is what my exact level or TP level was. So hopefully we'll hit that right away, even if we do reverse, because again, then I just have nothing to worry about, right? I've paid myself along the position and we see what happens from there. But I do like hype. You know, I've been bullish on hype with as far as spot goes since before $20, and I've been more so just trading it. Lately, I've been more interested in longing hype over Bitcoin, just because Bitcoin is actually at macro resistance, whereas hype is currently in price discovery. I do want to zoom out a little bit just to see what the daily is doing. Unfortunately, there is something that I don't like about the daily on hype right now. And it is micro-analyzing, but it is the daily chart. Technically, we had a high and a higher high here. Whether you want to look at that as a swing fail or also looking at this as our higher low, and since losing that level, that is concerning because hype has gone up so aggressively on this trend that this is really the first time we're seeing this. Other than actually, you know what? Right here we had that, and it got invalidated really quickly. So hopefully we see something like that again. But once again, this is a pretty ugly looking swing fail up there, in my opinion, and it is on the daily. So something worth considering as well. The RSI, a pretty ugly divergence there on the RSI. Not gonna lie. It's not the perfect double top RSI divergence setup that I like looking for, but it's very, very similar. The RSI plays the part, it just doesn't quite have the structure, but honestly, that could end up dropping significantly more. And that's exactly why I'm taking profits on my shorter time frames as we go, because I don't know what's going to happen from here. I have my concerns either way, and that's why I'm positioning myself as such in both directions. How are you guys all feeling about the market, by the way? Are you guys all scared? Are you excited? Are you very bullish? Have FOMO? Do you have FOMO on shorts like I do? Like it took you guys, this is one of those times, to be completely honest, taking those longs on Bitcoin and hype for me today were a little bit difficult to do because I have been so bearish on the mid to long term trend for such a long time. It is very hard for me to pull the trigger on longs right now. But again, the structure was there. It's a very systematic setup. That's why I ended up taking it. Worst case, it would have got stopped out. The short would have kept running, whatever. And we have our invalidation levels, right? So one trade set up at a time. But I'm human, and sometimes I have those emotions just like everybody else, even though I have my strategies, right? So it's important to note that, you know, sometimes your best trades come out of your zone of discomfort, you know, taking those positions you're uncomfortable with, and you end up nailing it if it's, you know, sticking to your plan. So we'll see what happens with those. Maybe they'll turn into some home run trades. Who knows? Adrian needs hype at least $29 still. I still think you're going to get it, bud. I could really see us going down there. Plumbus has been buying alts slowly, have levels to edge into them. Other than that, losing money on meme coin rugs and some stupid leverage plays. Fair enough. I've definitely lost my fair share of money by gambling on meme coins and stuff. Now I more so play the ones that have been around for a while rather than looking for that day one nail it moment. Like, I mean, I mentioned this in pretty much all my streams. Nailed my entry on this ass soul coin. I just happened to find it funny, and I just bought a small bag back at the end of January, start of February, and I think it's up like a 12x or something. Yeah, about a 12x. I think my position's actually up closer to a 20x because I've been just spot trading it a little bit, selling it and rebuying and that sort of thing. So that one, started as a joke, and it's a nice position now. So there's a couple that have done well, but I definitely waited for that pullback, right? Not buying into the first pump, because so many coins are just instant rug pulls day one, really hour one, so many of the times. So, but I'm no stranger to that game. Interesting how it looks like, I like my trend lines to be exact touch points. So this one never quite got my third touch point there. Does look like we're getting possibly a little swing fail of this little resistance we have here. But since we haven't set a lower low here, if this would have set a lower low, I would have been more comfortable swinging at that swing fail. But since we actually had that Stuber fib higher low, I don't know. I have a little bit less faith in trying to add another short at this time. Actually, let me check a couple things. Trendmaster indicator. Yeah, you know what? The fact that we had these lower trending sell signals and we actually broke that trend here, I don't really want to get into a new short yet. I'm going to let the longs run, other than, my existing two shorts from significantly higher. Those obviously still have a chunk running, but I'm not interested in starting a new one quite yet. Trying to wait for Stuber setups and playing the ranges. Yeah, that's the thing, right? Play the ranges first. And guys, the thing is, when it comes to Stuber fibs, like, understand that everybody does see things different. So if you end up pulling you look at structure differently or anything like that. Someone actually messaged me asking something the other day, and I kind of cleared something up for them because they were looking at it a little different than I do. Even though it looks very similar, there's things that can be slightly different that get very different results. But the whole idea of a Stuber fib, honestly, is the fact you're looking for structure to break and then looking for a deep pullback so that you can get a nice tight invalidation setup. It's not that they're magical numbers necessarily. They seem to get respected quite well, don't get me wrong. But the main idea there is just that you're looking for that structure break and waiting for a pullback rather than FOMOing into a breakout and getting wrecked like most traders like to do. So that's really like just looking at it from a fundamental basis. That might kind of help you understand why we play those fibs. And same with the other side, right? If I was looking for a short, for example, same thing. You're looking for that structure break to the downside and then just looking for a pullback. You know, if we had structure, let's say we had something like this, and we ended up pulling back like that, for example, that means that at this point we would have lost that structure, right? That was our higher low, our confirmed higher low that ended up breaking. And from there, obviously there's the people who like to short the retest in something like that. But as far as an actual Stuber fib, that's where, okay, now we have our range. If the price ends up dropping lower, then the range just gets bigger, right? And that's where I'm more so looking for. And it doesn't always happen. Yeah, if you have FOMO, sometimes it hurts because sometimes you don't get that pullback. But basically waiting for that structure break followed by a basically a full retracement, right? Very close to a full retracement. Ideally hitting a bunch of laddered entries. But, you know, the market doesn't always give us what we want. But that's kind of the idea behind Stuber fibs. Just in case anybody was looking for a real quick breakdown of the ideology behind it or anything like that. So this buy signal here on Bitcoin's 5-minute, it is a lower buy signal. But again, the fact that we broke this lower sell trend, I really think eventually we're going to set some sort of a higher sell signal and then a higher buy signal. And at that point, that's where I think we're going to actually break out for a little bit, go for a little bit of a pump. But we'll have to see. Like I said, very bearish on the overall trend still. All the same reasons that I've been talking about for the last several weeks, honestly, even months. Basically all of 2020. I was warning about this kind of setup, right? On the weekly time frame, getting these overextended divergences where we get some sort of a double top setup. We had one happen here, double top with that big bearish divergence from overextended down to the 70 level. And then again, an even bigger one here, big double top. And again, from overextended or overbought down to that 70 level. So a very specific divergence that I look for. It's not that I look for any bearish divergence. It's a very specific one that I've back tested. So as far as other divergences, I don't know, right? I think no matter what kind of a setup you're looking at trading, you should be doing back testing on it before actually trading it. It'll save you a lot of headaches and a lot of money in the long run. If you do a little bit of homework, really, it can really only takes a few hours or, you know, a few hours a night for the first little while for people who are learning how to trade and that sort of stuff. Just really back testing trade setups, have a set of rules. You know, I need these 3 things at least to line up. And if they do, this is how I would end up taking the trade. Here would be my invalidation, etc. Just something systematic that you back test and you have some sort of probabilities, right? Because so many people were screaming how bullish we are at this level. And to be honest, we could still break out, right? If we do, that's fine. That's why invalidations are important. But the thing is, I have backtested this divergence a lot, and a lot of people are saying it doesn't matter, but they haven't done any backtesting with it. And that's actually one of my highest hitting success rate trades is that trade setup. I know I talk about, and I'm more so known for the Stuber fib setup, and like, you know, that's what I mostly refer to and those setups. But honestly, that's just because they happen so much more often. But I love looking for that divergence from, you know, overbought to the 70 or oversold up to the 30 and some sort of a double top or double bottom pattern. That's one of my favorite trade setups to take. So to see it on the weekly time frame, I don't care if we've been trading at this level for 5 or 6 weeks. You know, I don't care. It hasn't been invalidated yet. The signal is still there. Even if the RSI would go back into overbought conditions, even if the price was sitting at this level, that's when I would actually become quite bullish, and I would think that resistance is about to break. But the fact that it just looks like it's curling to the downside, it doesn't look like we're gaining strength at this level. To me, at least. I don't know, maybe somebody can prove me wrong on that, but as it stands right now, every time we see this setup on the weekly chart, I mean, it leads to very large moves. The smallest one I could find was 20% before it got invalidated. But again, when the RSI ended up breaking out, that's when the price was able to go higher. Just like, you know, over here, once the RSI broke out, we got the green light to go a little bit higher. Here, same thing. Recently, we ended up breaking the RSI around here, breaking structure, and we climbed a little higher, but now we got that same divergence. So until that breaks, it's going to be pretty hard for me to flip bullish at this time. Looking at the monthly chart, same with the MDX Wavemaster indicator. On the monthly time frame, these crosses have been massive signals, and also the timeline of how long they've taken to cross like this. You know, very similar to, you know, a lot of people saying that this market cycle has barely started and that, you know, we haven't gone however many days since the halving and stuff like that. But there's always things to fit your own agenda, and that goes for me as well, right? But I'm happy to admit that I could be wrong with this, and if we get invalidated, so be it. If I miss a 5% move to the upside, I don't care. But you know what? If people take a 75% loss to the downside, they will care. That's the difference. Being ready for anything, that's the most important thing you can do in this market. I've been talking about this one in the micro gems chat for quite a bit, you guys. I'm still waiting for that buy signal on the daily chart. I think it's only it's like a 3 million market cap, so it's still quite small. Understand, when we're looking at meme coins, you guys, this is micro cap meme coin, trash of the trash, the wild west of crypto. Be smart about it. Don't go YOLOing huge amounts of money into these things. Honestly, you would probably cause a bunch of slippage on yourself if you ended up doing that anyways. So yeah, understand that the meme coin, the meme coin world is a casino, as long as you understand that. How is that a divergence? Because the price is high but the RSI is lower. Yeah, exactly, Thump. So basically, the easiest way to explain something like this one is, what does the RSI stand for, right? Relative Strength Index. So therefore, in an uptrend, when you are overbought, you actually have a significant amount of buying pressure. And when we're coming up to the same level of resistance that we could not break with a shit ton of buying pressure, with a shit ton of strength, if we have significantly less strength when we're attacking the same level of resistance, why would we break it? That's kind of the idea behind a divergence like that. Obviously, if we were in a downtrend, I would be bearish if the RSI got overbought. But in an uptrend, that's actually a sign of strength. I mean, in previous bull markets, for example, I mean, just look at how much the price went up even though we were in overbought conditions, right? Previous market cycles, like, really overbought started down here, but we just kept mooning, right? But it's when we ended up getting that nasty divergence, for example, that's what ended the last market cycle. The exact same chart setup that we had at the end of last cycle is in the chart right now. The one thing to say about that is that, could they really make it that easy? I mean, a lot of people don't see it the way I see it, for one. So, but then when I do point it out and people say that, oh, that's so obvious that they wouldn't do that again, well, I'm not seeing too many people point out that exact setup. Even the way that we recovered right back up to that level, right? It happened so quickly, just like it did this time. I'm even going to erase these red boxes here, just so, and actually these lines, just to make it more clear. But just look at what happened here. So Obviously here we can look at this as a Stuber fib setup as well, right? Because we lost the uptrend, right? We're printing higher highs and higher lows this whole time, but here we end up losing that structure. So we pull a fib from where we topped there down to where we got our bounce from, and look what happened. Yeah, we went a little higher than the Stuber, but it never got invalidated, right? We never broke the 115. So whether you want to look at it as a double top, a swing fail, or a Stuber fib, they all played out, and it had that nasty divergence from extremely overbought down to that 70 level rejection. Right now, what do we have here? If I look at the same thing, and notice we have the same thing, right? We have this higher high, higher high. Treat this as our higher low. We end up breaking that level, pull a fib from the highest point down to where we bounced. Same thing, right? We have that double top. We have that liquidity grab swing fail. We have the Stuber fib. We have that RSI divergence from overbought down to the 70 level. It's literally the exact same chart for me. Not saying it has to play out the same. I honestly, I don't know if they could make it that easy for me that it's like, hey, here you go. Here's the exact same top as last cycle. There seems to be a lot of people in denial about it still. So I don't know. It's really going to depend what happens with liquidity and that sort of thing. But as it stands right now, I just don't see a reason to have FOMO is more so my thing. Because again, you know, like I was mentioning in previous streams, I sold a bunch of my spot around 110. If this pattern gets invalidated, okay, so I miss out on 5% and then I can buy back in because, hey, we're breaking out. My structure's invalidated. We might end up staircasing higher. I can always get back into the market. If I lose that 5%, you know, consider it a small trade because it's not like it was even my full account, right? I still hold most of my crypto. It's just that I was taking some profits. And, you know, I have no problem missing out on a 5% move, but so many people think that that would be the end of the world for some reason. I mean, guys, I've been bullish from basically when we broke this here. I think it was even where was it? I started getting a little bullish back here, and then we had the FTX collapse, and then when we started breaking back up, I just figured, you know, that's when I basically got bullish. So between 18 and 20,000, I was bullish all the way up until about 110K, with the exception of a couple times where I did get bearish for a short term. But as it stands right now, you know, for the most part, I was bullish from 20K up to 115. I mean, that's a 500% move. I don't give a shit if I miss out on 5%. It's just that a lot of people have a hard time fathoming that this could be the end of the cycle because they never got back into it until the media told them that Bitcoin was back at all-time highs, right? That's how a lot of people get into the market, and they're not going to catch a large chunk of the market cycle, right? So that's why a lot of people think this cycle's just getting started. But really, I mean, where did we bottomed in November of 2022? So, you know, Bitcoin's had a great run. It doesn't owe us anything. It can drop from here, and I would call it a successful cycle. Altcoins not so much, but I think Bitcoin did great. Looking like, speaking of Bitcoin looking great on the 5-minute, it really looks like it's going to try and hold this buy trend. So far, so good. Again, lower buy, but the fact that we broke the lower sell, you know, that's showing a little bit of strength, or at least weakness from the bears, if nothing else. And like I said earlier, the fact that we ended up dumping so hard, oh man, I just love those signals where the sell signals change directions, or the buy signals get into some very nice positions a lot of the times. Some very nice potential shifts in trends pointed out when you use something like the MDX Trend Master or ALGO Master if you have your own strategy. But this is just kind of one that I've played with for quite a while. And when I notice those sell signals reverse like that, for example, right? Sell signal, higher sell signal. When that lower one comes into play, just look at that signal. Same with the higher buy signal. This was a great little rally. Didn't last forever, but you know what? It was still nice moves. So I do love looking at that strategy when looking for confirmation as well. What What's Hype doing? Hype's still looking good as well. I'd really like to hit my next target here before reversing, if it needs to reverse. Exhaustion, price goes up higher with less buy pressure interest. Yeah, basically same thing, right? Either goes higher or, like what I said, double top, Stuber top. It really depends how the structure shapes up, but that's generally the idea there. Trendmaster on Hype, you say. I can turn on Trendmaster with Hype. So we have a buy signal on the 5-minute. Lower buy signal, have not broke the lower sell signal yet. I know the sell signal came in down here, but I'm treating it like this was the pivot before it really took effect. So although it wasn't a great trade, it wouldn't have been a great trade or anything. Obviously it was late on the trend because there was other ones, but that's more so the level I'd be looking at right now. But if we can print a higher sell signal followed by a higher buy signal, that would just be great confirmation to hold on to my long at that point, basically, until all of a sudden a lower sell signal comes into play, right? Because obviously, as I mentioned, when I'm looking at playing the range, obviously the fib levels are there, right? You have your very structured levels, but after that, I kind of see what happens with the remaining half of my position if it is going to break out of the range. And that's where something like this comes into play for me. Just riding it out until, even if the 1 minute, for example, printed a lower sell signal, higher sell, higher sell, higher sell, lower sell signal, that would be a warning for me. Hey, lock in some more profits just in case. And then if it reverses back to the upside, fantastic. And then kind of do the same thing, right? If that signal happens again, then I can always nibble on some more profits as it goes, basically. But that's where I really like using the indicators, is that confluence of, especially if I have a running position. And I mean, the name says it all, right? It's the trend master indicator. I love using it to spot a trend. And when it starts to show weakness, that's when I'll nibble some more profits, basically. I wanted to check that with Bitcoin on the 4-hour, actually, because that was one concern that I noticed. Was it yesterday or the day before? Basically, we've had a couple now. We've still been printing higher buy signals, so a little bit of conflicting stories there. But, with everything else going for it, I mean, we can see that we just have sell signal, lower sell signal, lower sell signal, resistance above Bitcoin with the indicator as well. Both this trend as well as this right here. So basically the bulls need to break above this pivot point here on the 4-hour, which would be around 109,000 US dollars. It really needs to break that to have any hopes of going for a run again, testing all-time highs again. That's just looking pretty nasty on the 4-hour trend, honestly, and kind of matching up with everything I've been talking about on the longer time frames, right? Happy to have it invalidated, but at this time, I'm just calling it for how I see it. Hype, yeah, it seems to, I mean, since I've been following it and trading it anyways, it really seems to be following Bitcoin, except the moves are more explosive. Like when Bitcoin finds support, Hype has been pumping a lot harder than Bitcoin, basically, because again, like, the difference is that Bitcoin is currently at macro resistance, whereas Hype is still in price discovery mode. Ooh, that's actually nice looking on the daily, hey? Getting real close to the daily buy support on the trend master there. See, this is what I'm hoping to see on ASS. With a 3 million market cap, to see that signal come into play, ooh, that could be a juicy one. 4-hour, what's the 4-hour? So again, we have a sell signal, but it's a higher sell, a much higher sell signal. So obviously the trend is still very clearly to the upside. This is one of those times where we can try and use this indicator as a little bit of confluence, right? This is something that I like to do often, that where's our previous higher buy signal is obviously this guy. This is where we got our pivot from. That is where I am also willing to pull a fib from and consider this a valid Stuber fib, just because the indicator has that. Since they are trending this direction and this is where it pivoted before finding that buy support, this is one thing that I like to look at, especially, you know, even if we don't have a higher buy signal yet, the fact that we have a higher sell and this is our previous buy, that's basically the confluence I need to pull a fib like this. Liquidations. Starting to lose that liquidation band. That needs to be reclaimed. We need that Stuber support to hold, and we need to reclaim that liquidation band. Liquidation levels. Notice that there is some liquidity up above. That would actually be very close to getting, let's say, a Stuber fib bounce. A retest would be right in the pocket, so it makes sense that we could grab that liquidity up there. As well, look, notice we have some gold bars here right at the 786 and the 886 of that fib that I just pulled. If we start losing those levels, that's where we need to be concerned, because technically there is a lot of liquidity below us still. And at that point, if we start losing some major structure levels, I mean, even though I'm bullish on this one, I don't want to have a blind bias. I gotta understand the possibility of we start losing those ranges. We might be coming right back down towards these lows down here. It's still way too early to say it's going to happen. It's just, if it does, we start losing these levels, be careful. Could be a bit of a free fall here. Yeah, that average leverage liquidity, that's pretty neat, actually. I like the liquidation band. It often lines up with the Trendmaster indicator, whether it's a buy trend or a sell trend, you know, support or resistance. Quite often they will line up together. Very close, right? The sell signal is just slightly above the liquidation band there. So again, just additional confluence there that no matter how you look at it, unfortunately with hype, we're starting to see a little bit of resistance. I'm hoping it's not the end of its run. I really, even if Bitcoin has bottomed, or topped rather, I'm still hoping that altcoins have a nice rally. Hype obviously already has, but so many altcoins are nowhere near their macro resistance yet. Even Ethereum, it has a lot of room to go towards the macro Stuber fibs. But yeah, I would like to see this one continue running with a strong altcoin season. I mean, this thing could be the next Solana, like what Solana did last cycle, right? Could be one of those. But obviously, we'll have to see what happens. Right now, the structure is giving us that little bit of warning. Oh, hey, kitty. She's out from under the bed. 1 second. There you go. Run free. Carry on. There they go. One more leg up. I would love to see it. It's just unfortunately one of those things that I feel like so many people on social media and everything is, you know, even I was saying this before we started dumping, but when I started getting bearish at about 110K, as I was saying, you know, a lot of people are starting to be very comfortable with that theory of one more pump. And oh yeah, on the next pump I'm gonna ditch my bags and I'm gonna nail it this time. I'm not gonna be scared to take profits. But so many people were starting to feel that way that it became comfortable, and I think that's why it stepped in early. I don't know if I'd even say that it stepped in early though, because it is, again, just like last cycle. You know, if we end up doing something like this, oh boy, we could be setting up for something very, very ugly, even if it was a smaller one. Things could get, at that point, I think it would be bear market on if we end up losing these lows down here. I really have a feeling at that point we're in a bear market, even though it's very likely we would see a bounce. It would just be a typical Stuber setup, right? Everyone would be getting excited, specifically when they got back to resistance. That's when everyone would start to celebrate. And when you have a bearish break followed by that retrace, people celebrating at resistance, that's when you pull the trigger on a short. I say it all the time in my streams, you guys. People get very happy at resistance and they get very scared at support. Everyone knows you're supposed to buy support and sell resistance, but people let their emotions do the exact opposite. And you can see it on Twitter. As soon as you hit the 786 pocket, if you have a bearish break like this, as soon as we got to that 786, you could see that all the Twitter accounts were all celebrating. It got very bullish. And I was like, yep, right on time. Sure, we went a little higher, but we sure haven't invalidated anything. But that being said, what I would love to see is, I still strongly believe, and this has nothing to do with the war or anything, I strongly believe that we are on our way to 93K, if not 83K. And that is nothing other than basic market structure. Again, guys, I don't treat the 4 hour any different than the 5 minute, the 1 hour, the 1 minute, the weekly. This is just basic structure. As far as a basic Stuber fib setup, if you guys, like, especially those of you in the MDX ALGO here, so many of you guys are comfortable with the Stuber fibs and see them all the time and stuff like that. If this was on the 5 minute, you would think this is an obvious short level. But on the weekly, you know, technical analysis kind of goes out the window on longer time frames, because especially crypto traders don't really have the patience to be waiting for a weekly chart pattern to play out, right? There's a lot of people, like I said, people asking me why we haven't dumped yet if this is so bearish. So this is now week 5 or 6. Well, last time we traded right at that fib pocket for about 5 or 6 weeks. Technically, usually market cycles get a little slower, so we could just keep trading along here for a couple more weeks, and I'm not flipping bullish unless we actually break a level. I'm not going to get bullish just because I get impatient. I'm going to get bullish if my bearish theories start getting invalidated. For example, if the RSI goes back overbought, I'll be very bullish for the time being, until we get the big old ugly divergence again, basically. The weekly RSI tells a lot. It tells a good story. Well, unless you're a bull. It does not tell a good story right now for the bulls, but it gives good insight. But yeah, like, and the reasoning for these targets, other than just being the short targets, if you were looking at this as a Stuber, as far as a swing trade, and that's the thing, is a lot of swing traders are totally ignoring shorting resistance for some reason. I'm more of a scalper, and I'm seeing the resistance on a swing fail level, or a swing trade level rather. You know, I would just always rather be a seller, or at least be cautious at resistance. I would not be FOMOing longs in here, other than, like I said, the odd one that I'm taking on shorter time frames, but I would not be looking for a long, like a swing position out of this, unless it's one, if it's a scalp that turns into one. But as far as a short setup, I mean, if this was a typical Stuber fib, right, pulled top to bottom, start laddering in at the 786, 886, the 1, you wouldn't have even hit your last entry. Not invalidated till above the 115, and if that's the trade you were taking, I mean, the first target is way down here around 92k. I always front run my fibs a little, so I'd be more looking at 93. Just like down here is 82k, I'd be looking more for 83k. And that's just my range targets, you guys. I mean, that's if a bear market isn't starting. That being said, I would get very bullish at those levels. A lot of people would start to panic, and I'd be looking at it as the opposite, right? At that point, okay, well, we did technically set a higher high, right? We broke that, set a higher high, higher high, confirmed higher low. If this was a 5-minute chart, that's a very clean one. That's the thing. It's not even like we had a messy top here. Let me just see if I can clean things up a little bit. Yeah, it's not even like there was a crazy messy top or anything like that. It's just that as soon as we broke these highs here, we ended up reversing from there. So that's a very clean setup that if we would end up pulling way back to down here, I mean, I understand why people would start to panic and stuff because people can't handle seeing that kind of volatility. But that would just be, if that was a 5-minute, this would be a perfect long opportunity. That's exactly how I trade any Stuber Fib setup, and I would love to be looking for longs down at this level. Because the thing is, even if we enter a bear market, we're going to see a reaction from this level. I can almost guarantee it. And that's where you'll start to see people saying, oh, the bottom's in, bears got wrecked, as they were longing into resistance the whole time and shorting into support, but then they celebrate as it starts to climb. And it is nothing, it's not necessarily anything if we end up getting a bounce from these levels. It's just an obvious buy level for some sort of a reaction. It doesn't mean it's going to stick around. It might. But I will be looking for long positions if we end up dropping to those levels. I don't know if we will, right? That's the thing, guys. When it comes to trading, we don't know if we are going to go down there for sure. But if we do, I'm going to be ready to start looking for longs, right? I'm just planning ahead. It doesn't mean it has to happen. It's just if that was a 5-minute chart, that's where I'd be looking to long. So if I see it on the 4-hour, I'm going to be looking for longs. Yeah, exactly. Laddering into alts on key levels. I think laddering in at structure levels rather than timing. For example, dollar cost averaging every day I'm buying this much or whatever. I think buying levels is a better way to price cost average, you know, because then you're actually bringing your average price down. I want this back to the old 5-minute chart. Let's just keep hitting undo until something cool happens. Oh, yeah, there it is. Nope, there it isn't. Let's keep going. There it is. I knew we'd get there eventually. Yeah, so there was a couple other coins that were mentioned, I think. I know SEI was mentioned. I went over hype. I went over Bitcoin. I will look at SEI yet, and then I'm probably going to wrap up. I have a couple things to get done here, and it stopped raining, so I want to go back outside. Actually, I don't want it to be that one. Let's just start another one. SEI. And what were you looking for? You were looking for a short on SEI, if I'm not mistaken. Why can't I find it? Oh, Leverage Larry. I don't think he's even here anymore, but I will look at it anyways. SEI on the 5-minute. Honestly, it looks like a good short right now. It may have already played out. It hit the 0.5 fib once already. But either way, it did break that uptrend, and it did test the Stuber fib there. Oh man, that is tempting. I just don't like that it already tested the 0.5 in my bag. Well, you know what? Fuck it. I'll throw a little one in. See what happens. Thanks for joining, Plumbus. Catch you on the next one. I'll probably be around the next few days. It's supposed to rain a bunch, so I might end up doing a couple public streams or something. Soul. I can take a quick look at Soul as well. Interesting. Oh, I have mixed feelings about this. I see an obvious Stuber fib resistance that we're at, but we did break these lower trending sell signals. So with the ALGO Master auto fibs, I don't agree with this fib pull. That's why I always say that it's important to know how to pull them yourself, so that you can kind of notice when, for example, this one's invalidated, right? It already broke the 115. I personally would be looking more so at this structure though. The fact that we set a lower low there, meaning this would be the high point. So we are technically right in that fib pocket. It hasn't played out yet. But the trend master scares me a little bit. The ALGO Master on the 15 agrees with that setup. I have a feeling, if Bitcoin and Hype, for example, are going to continue climbing, then I assume Solana would probably do the same. However, yeah, maybe it climbs a little more. Like, it might be worth something, laddering into a position, something like that. The Stuber fib is there. Like, obviously, just like any trade setup, I can't guarantee it's going to play out, but it's there. And the ALGO Master is good confluence there. The structure is there. Like, there's no doubt about it. This is our low. This is our lower low, lower high. So yeah, we are at resistance. There's no doubt about that. Whew. Oh, that's a big nasty one on the 4 hour. I'm just going to remove all my drawings here. So this one just caught my eye, you guys, because of the ALGO Master, but it's pointing it out, and I do agree with this, right? Once again, we have this lower low, and we did go slightly lower there. Obviously, it was a bit of a liquidity grab, a swing fail, whatever you want to call it, but that bounce already happened. So at this point, that is, in fact, a lower low. But that could still mean quite a bounce if that's the case. So be careful. Like I said, 15-minute we're at resistance, but 4 hour we're more so at support at this point. I think it's got bearish structure, but that doesn't mean that we can't climb and get that retracement, right? Break structure, end up getting a retracement. So that would be our lower high, right? Lower low, lower low. Highest point between the two is our lower high. That's where you pull your fib from. Boom, indicator nailed it. So yeah, there's some confluence for that one too, if we end up getting that bounce. And honestly, I'm a little hesitant to open new shorts on something like Solana right now. If you do, just keep your risk tight. Like, I would be laddering into a position if anything, because I think it could climb a little higher. But yeah, I'd be looking more so at the 15 at max and wanting to cut my losses if it breaks much above this resistance here. Because I have a feeling things are going to climb a little bit tonight. We'll see. But yeah, if Solana ends up going up to that 4 hour, resistance, I mean, that could be a very large short opportunity. Sorry, one sec. I just got a message. Doge, I can absolutely check out Doge for you, especially since I forgot that one time. How embarrassing. Doge is interesting. So obviously, I do agree with the Stuber Fib pull that the ALGO Master pulled. Something to be a little bit cautious of is it did set a new lower low. However, that being said, it is looking like a swing fail so far, right? Either way, if you're looking to get into some sort of a Stuber position on a 4 hour, I mean, we never broke that 115, right? Those are the opportunities I love getting into. I mean, it's a little late for those real tight ones, but if you start seeing, like, let's say a 5 minute or even a 1 minute starting to find support very close to a 115 like that, that's where you can get into those 10 to 1 positions, right? As far as risk reward. I don't know exactly what it would be in this case, but yeah, like 7.5 to 1 risk reward kind of a thing. So depending how close you can get to those invalidations, that's where if I saw the 5 minute or the 1 minute closing green candles down here, I would be looking at trading it just like, for one, because the structure for a Stuber Fib was here, but just alone on the fact that, hey, you know what, here's a valid setup with a very tight, very large reward compared to the risk if you were going to lose on something like that. And even now at this level, I mean, we're still below the 886, so it's just that, yeah, would have been nicer to get in down here, obviously. But yeah, as far as the Stuber goes, we're still definitely in support there. If we end up losing that level, that's where, unfortunately, we start to have to consider the entire swing. But even that, we're really not that far away from that either. So even if it breaks down a little bit, that's kind of one of those tricky spots, right? Depending how far you want to zoom in. Even if we lose this range here, there is technically more support below us. It's just that obviously that's getting to be very loose invalidation. So it depends what your risk tolerance and what kind of time frame you're actually trading. Let me hop into the 5 minute, for example. Obviously, we had a beautiful Stuber Fib here, but it's Captain Hindsight, right? We never did break that level. Let's just make this a little bigger, easier to see. So basically on the downtrend here, right, on the macro downtrend, so, or micro downtrend rather, even just starting from here, we had a low, we had a lower low. That confirms this is our lower high. Lower low, where's the highest point between the two? That would be way up here, so barely moving. However, here, this is where structure changes drastically, right? We now have a significantly lower high just because we had this low and a lower low. After we broke that structure, what happens then? Yeah, we end up getting a pullback, but we just get a beautiful Stuber entry there. Again, waiting for that structure to break and then waiting for that trade to come to you down at these levels, right? The whole theory behind them. So yeah, unfortunately that's already played out. But it was a beautiful one there. And the 4 hour, I still think looks like it's at support. The trend master indicator, it's really trying to push above this resistance here. It is at resistance, but it's not looking so bad. It's really trying to hold this trend here. What's the liquidations? Liquidations band is significantly higher yet. Liquidation levels, I mean, that could go either way. There's liquidity both directions here. AI charting tools, yeah, like I said, we're at resistance, but we've been printing these support levels or these demand zones. We've been printing these more recently than we printed these supply zones from back here, right? So right now, also the fact that we're printing a higher low, for example, and we broke this lower high. So it's not looking too bad. We're at resistance, but it's still looking like it's got some strength in my opinion. Oh, no, Marvy. Yeah, Discord's full of issues, man. Yeah, a little buggy. um, yeah, how's everything looking? Hype still hasn't quite hit my next target there. Bitcoin finding support off that buy trend, like I was talking about a little earlier. I think it does look like we could climb a little higher. Macro trend, I'm still obviously bearish for all the reasons I would discuss today already. Ooh, a new day. Still no buy signal on that ass coin. God damn. Oh well. I'm gonna erase that trend line. I'm not a huge fan of trend lines, so I don't feel like I need that up right now. I want to keep my charts clean, keep my fib up. Yeah. Anyways, legends, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. So hopefully you guys did find this stream useful. Those of you who are watching this on my YouTube channel a little later, if you did appreciate this video and getting insights to what we went over today, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't. And if you want access to the MDX ALGO indicators that I use every day, there is a 10% discount link in the description down below as well. With that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.